Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a nice day out there. Always like it when it's a nice day so that I can kind of enjoy what I'm about to do. Uh, we've got people coming in, but I wanted to say thank you to those of you showing up early and on time. I really appreciate that you do. I work hard to put these on, and you showing up early and on time not only is a simple thank you to me, but also lets LinkedIn push the word out to other people saying, hey, don't forget, we're starting training. So my tip for you today for success, and by the way, thanks for engaging in the chat. Keep that going because that's the community that goes together with the training. My tip for you comes out of 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And it relates to, and by the way, if you don't know this book, Stephen Covey wrote this book. There you go. Stephen Covey wrote this book a long time ago. I started reading it in 1997. I read it every single year. And habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. And I just wanted to mention this just in general, when you think about what you're doing, right? It's a great habit to have. Begin with the end in mind and then kind of back it up. I like to reverse engineer things. So if this is what I want, how do I reverse engineer it? But as it relates to today's training, for example, on RFIs, the end in mind of an RFI is I want a contract, right? And for me, I believe in going after contracts in the RFI to try to win them there. And if I have to go to the RFP, then fine, I'll go there. But the ultimate goal there, the end in mind, is the contract win. And so when I back that up and I begin with the RFI, I'm thinking about the win. And so I'm writing the RFI that way. You'll hear me mention this again in a minute. That's just this quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time. Again, thank you for doing that. I appreciate you showing up early and on time. I really do. So sometimes I'm talking to you and I'm trying to click. Someday I'll graduate to having a producer somewhere who's doing all the magic of the tech, and it's not just me. Not just me on the tech side. Okay, let's get rocking and rolling into today's training. Pull up my slides. So lately I've been starting my trainings this way, where I just share this first slide, which I used to for hundreds of videos, keep it just in the background. And then I would miraculously come along and show you this fancy title slide, right? But I like just giving you the same thoughts that I'm having as I'm trying to start the training. And one of the reasons I'm doing today's training, not just about how to respond, but also people sometimes ask me, should I even respond to RFIs? Are they still going on? And so I just wanted to tell you that RFIs and sources sought, they're definitely still a thing. They're definitely out there. They're still being used. In fact, this morning I put out a post on LinkedIn, and generally you can see this post when I do it. But 979 RFIs as of this morning, and today is the 27th of February, right? So as of this morning, in fact, by the time I finished writing the post and putting it out, it went up to 980 because somebody else had released another RFI. These things are still out there. Market research is still going on. The government is still buying, despite what we hear in the news and from Doge and all these other places about billions and trillions being cut. Well, not really. I mean, there's still a ton of spending in there, and I'm not going to go into that today. I did that yesterday and the other days. But the federal government, one thing is pretty predictable about them is they spend. They're just going to shift how they spend. And the RFIs and sources sought notices, these are the ways that we'll find out, well, how are they shifting that spending pattern that they did? So you want to watch for these in SAM. You want to watch for them in Seaport Next Gen and GSA and other contract vehicles you have. Watch for these RFIs coming out. The other thing is, if you're not tracking on this, RFIs and sources sought are just market research. This is something that will not be cut from the federal government. This part of the acquisition lifecycle. This is normal in a commercial business. I do it myself if I'm looking to paint the building I'm in, right? I sit there and go, well, let me go find 3 painters. I might reach out to 10 or 20 to see if I can find 3 I'd want to meet with and then talk and maybe get a bid. That's what market research is for the federal government. And so that's just what we want to track. So RFIs are definitely a thing. If that's what you're here for, by the way, put RFIs rock in the chat. And if you're not convinced, I will tell you why RFIs rock by the time we get to the end. But right now we're going to talk about how to respond to sources sought notices and RFIs. Actually, if I pause 1 second, because I'm not going to go into this in the slides, so I might as well tell you here, there's a difference between RFIs and sources sought theoretically, right? We use the terms interchangeably. In fact, we say RFIs just because it's easier to say than sources sought, more syllables. That's funny. Sources sought is 2 syllables. Sources sought, maybe 3 syllables. And RFI, is that 3 syllables? All right. I'm a little tired, so I get a little funny when I'm doing it. Anyways, RFIs, though, generally are where the government is trying to engage with industry to talk about the scope of work and to understand more about the requirements, the options they have, et cetera, for approaching their need. The sources sought tends to be more about the acquisition approach. We're trying to see what sources are out there that could respond. Women-owned small businesses, et cetera. So that's just a quick little, what's the difference between a sources sought and RFI. I'm going to break today's training down into 3 sections for how to respond to RFIs in 2025 as a government contractor. And I'm sorry, I'm still recovering from being sick. I just got this lingering cough. But the 3 sections I'm going to break today down into are why responding to an RFI is really important. I believe strongly that it is very, very important, and you'll see me talk about this. The second thing I want to talk about is how to use RFIs to engage with the buyer and potential teammates, right? I might actually not have time to go too far into teammates, but just take whatever I say about the buyers and switch it over to large or small teammates that you might want to engage with. But when we think about engagement, this is like, I'm trying to make a cold call or have a meeting and I can't get a meeting. But if you respond to an RFI, you're kind of getting in the door, you're engaging right there. So that is something I want to expand on, how to do that. I'll give you really good tactical tips in there. And then the last way I'm going to break up today's training is to, I really want you to understand how to make the RFI your tool, the RFI response, your tool. The government puts it out, like the contractor or whatever, and they think it's their tool. No, it's my tool, right? For them, there's this great line, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it came from the revolutionary period, but it's like, only they have a rebellion, we have a revolution type thing. Well, here, the contracting officer might be sending it out saying, this is a tool, we need it for our reasons. I'm like, whatever, you do you. But me, I'm going to talk to you about how you need to make that response tool, the RFI response, a sales tool. It is not a, hey, let me do a favor for the contracting officer. Yes, of course we want to work with them, but this is your sales tool. And it's when you see it that way, you begin to see your responses a little differently. So that's how we're going to break it down today. If that's what you're looking for and you haven't done it yet, put RFI rocks in the chat like Crystal. Hey, Crystal, thanks. And everybody else is doing it. I just happen to see Crystal. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil Coffin McDonald. Right? Just going at it. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I am co-founder of GovCon in a Box, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got out of the Army, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. And I know that's what we want. Right now, with all this unpredictability out there, we need to kind of redefine what we're doing to make sure we can have our own predictable 2025 revenue and beyond. Somebody actually asked me once if I just record these and put them out. I'm like, are you kidding me? No. Well, this coughing stuff will kind of make that easier. Hey, if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the Government Contracting Success newsletter. My newsletter is the largest one on LinkedIn because I constantly am trying to put tips out in there that reinforce the trainings that I'm doing on how you can be a success as a government contractor. If you haven't done so already, reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn, especially if you're a government contractor or solidly in the federal market. Just send me a little note saying, hey, loved your training, let's connect. But when you connect, then I can invite you like networking. If you just follow me, which is totally fine, I'm not able to invite you anywhere. Your choice, but connect with me on LinkedIn. The last thing is tomorrow's training on the 28th. We're going to wrap up the month with how to win federal contracts. So I'm going to talk about that. Go check out the details on it and register and let me know you're coming. Okay. Oh, one last thing I wanted to do is just congratulate the people in the 100 Club. You can go to govconinabox.com and learn more about this, but I created something called the Federal Visibility Score. And this is how visible are you to the federal buyer when they're looking for you on their own platforms and tools. And so I think about 150 plus companies out of 370,000 are in the 100 Club, meaning they've done all the things that I have said you need to do at a minimum to be visible to federal buyers. I was looking at a company yesterday who's doing really well in past performances. I saw them on USA Spending. And when I looked at DSBS, where the market research happens, they had none of their experience in there. And so a buyer might come in there and go, well, you're not experienced, let me move on. And it's because the government is not smart enough to put these, does not care enough, has not took the initiative. I don't want to bash them, but man, put these tools together so I don't have to do it. But anyways, this company that has a lot of experience looks inexperienced to the buyer. I don't want that to be you. So go to govconinAbox.com. It's totally free to find your score. And I give you free tips on how to increase your company's score specifically, step-by-step guide. So if you're in the 100 club, like some of these people, like Jerry put number 46, which congratulations in there. Let me know that you're in there. Crystal's up there at 118. So go ahead and check that out at govconinAbox.com. So let's get rocking and rolling first with why responding to RFIs is so important to your success as a small business government contractor. These aren't in any particular order, but I just wanted to share some reasons on why you should make sure that RFIs are a solid part of your marketing and sales activities. First off, I just want to tell you my own experience, right? I'm not talking about what I have helped people in the last 7 years that I've coached, which I've done a ton, but my own companies, I have won tens of millions of dollars in contracts and total contract value, et cetera, in RFIs. And you'll hear me talk more about this today, but I was able to do that because we were so niched down on a core competency. My last company was SharePoint, and we were able to respond to RFI notices and drive forward to the win, so much so that more often than not, we would get invited in to talk about the government's challenges and what we're doing, and maybe talk about the requirements. And because of that meeting, we were able to demonstrate how they don't need to look anywhere else, just come to us kind of thing or something. Or we really position ourselves to understand what they're doing. So I have very personal experience at winning contracts, winning tens of millions of dollars doing that. And then over the last 7 years, I have taught. In one particular effort alone, and you can go look at this later, I've got a whole video just on this, but I helped HubZone companies win a $200 million set aside for HubZones, but using an RFI response. Basically, I got almost 100 companies responded within 24 hours. They set it aside to HubZone because of that. And because of that, they then awarded a $200 million contract value out there. And you can go watch this. I did the whole video on it. It was really a spectacular thing. And it wasn't because of me. It was because I taught everybody else this process that I teach you, that they just followed and did it themselves. That's the power of these trainings that I do. It's like I teach you and then you go off and do it. Okay, so people buy from those they know, like, and trust. One of the powers of an RFI is it helps the government know you. The minute they get your response, they're like, oh, here's, GovCon Chambers responded. Okay, let me look at that. And then they begin to like and trust you by the response, by your understanding of their needs and their agency's mission, et cetera. And they truly begin to trust you as they have more conversations. But an RFI can kickstart that whole process. So you want to be driving in. In sales, we talk about sales and marketing to me are just all one part, right? Marketing is just the beginning part of sales to me. And I'm not here to debate that with anybody. But the idea of sales, it begins with this engagement with your customer, and that is marketing or meetings, et cetera, as it evolves through whatever cycle you want. But generally, we say you want to have 10 or 20 marketing engagements or touch points with your potential buyers before they begin to even care who you are or know who you are, et cetera. And so responding to RFIs is one of the ways you can do that. In the next slide, I think, certainly today, I will show you how you can have 10 touches just from one RFI, right? And so this is really important. There's something called the inside the wire. If you're not familiar with this, generally this comes from like military bases. They've got a wired fence all the way around them. And if you're not an incumbent, then you're not inside the wire doing the work. And so you're on the outside of the wire. And an RFI basically gets you inside the wire. So you can think about the Department of Veterans Affairs or FEMA or whoever. And when you write an RFI, you're no longer outside the building, unknown to anybody. You're inside the building. You're inside the wire. And that's a great value of an RFI. It gets you in there and starts to get you known. Gives the KO a reason to set it aside. I already talked about that example with hub zones. But if they get enough RFI respondents, then they're going to set it aside. And so they need this in the sources sought phase to have the confidence to set something aside. We can't just expect contracting officers to do that. By the way, if you don't know this, KO is contracting officer, CO is contracting officer in the civilian side. CO stands for commanding officer in the military. That's why we call it a KO. Okay, second to last bullet, the last two bullets are about shaping the acquisition. So when you respond to an RFI, one of the big values of your response is that you can influence the contracting officer and the other people on the federal buying team to go in the direction you want them to go. And when I say influence, I don't mean make them do something. You're influencing their thinking. If you give them a reason to use this NAICS code compared to this NAICS code, the contractor officer is going to look at that and go, well, you know what? I value and I agree with your recommendation and your rationale, right? So I'm going to go with your recommendation. So you're shaping the acquisition approach. You're shaping the technical requirements. When you do kind of the same thing, you're educating your buyer, you're making recommendations, et cetera. That's shaping the opportunity. And you do that during market research. The RFI and the sources sought is kind of that beginning part of market research. So let's talk about, okay, good. Here's the marketing touches I was talking about. Really quick, before I go any further, do me a favor. In the chat, I just like to try to help you guys engage with each other. In the chat, put in, like I'm looking at Jerry really quick, and she's got audit readiness and project management. Put a sentence that just is a really small sentence in chat that says, I sell word to federal agencies. For example, Jerry might put in, I sell audit readiness. Don't say audit readiness and project management because they're two different things. Just pick one thing, your absolute favorite thing to sell, and put that in the chat. I want to know what you sell, but if you put too many words, it's hard for me to see it. Like Monica put, we specialize in change management. So she changed up my words a little bit, but it's still kind of that same thing. And I don't know if she might have got actually ahead of the sync on my video. But put that into the chat. What do you sell? Let other people know. I have thousands and thousands of people who view my content. Literally, I have 110,000 people in the last 7 days who have viewed my content. And this is my content as well. And so when you put a statement, the potential of those people seeing it is increased. But more importantly, it also goes to your network. And so your network can see that. I sell linen management. I provide project management services, right? I sell cloud services to DoD. Those are perfect. Okay. So while you're doing that, and thank you for doing that, let's talk about how to use RFIs to engage federal buyers, right? I don't just mean, I really want you to understand this. When I talk about this particular slide, how to use RFIs to engage the federal buyer, I mean, like how to wake them up, how to get them to see you over all of the competitors who might be responding or blah, blah, blah. So I broke it up into 3 ways here: before responding, and then in the response, and then after responding. So the first thing is, and these are tactics I follow, excuse me, and I follow these right now. I don't have a company anymore. Right now I'm working with customers, and I'm helping them with the federal space. And so as I coach them and I'm working on an RFI or something with them, I talk about, okay, let's send a response. The first bullet, send an email that says to the contracting officer and whoever's the point of contacts on there, hey, thanks a lot for putting this RFI out. I just wanted to let you know we're responding. We're really excited about the requirement. We can address this requirement. Something simple like that. Don't tell them a whole bunch of things about your company. You just try to say, thank you, we're responding. And they may not even respond, but at least half the time I get a response saying, sounds good, see, I'll look for the response or something. Just something polite from their side as well. Well, now I've just engaged them. Marketing engagement, a touch, right? These touch points, you do more and more, it starts building up. And some of these buyers go, well, that was nice of them to let me know they're responding, right? They're not going to be mad at you for doing that. And so before you're responding, you can do that. I also like to use questions. Even I don't care if it says no phone calls, no questions. I don't care. Again, RFIs are not RFPs. RFIs are a marketing dance between the buyer and the seller. What I do though is try to figure out how to create a question that I can zip in there, right, with them not actually feeling like it was a inconvenience. So an example is, one question I like to ask is, especially now when you think about what's going on with the Trump administration, is, hey, I was looking at the strategic plan and I was curious on which agency priority this work aligns to. Now, if you're doing construction or, well, actually construction is separate, but like, let's say janitorial services, lawn services, you're not really going to use that question. But if you're doing any of the professional services, you should figure out from this point forward, where does this work align, right? This is really important as you look at President Trump, who just passed an executive order yesterday saying, look everywhere. And basically he's saying, let's get rid of unessential work, non-essential work, and only keep essential. Well, we want to know this. And so I want to ask the KO. And then the last bullet I have on before responding as a tip for you, this one works 99% of the time for me, is I look through all of the documents, all of the paragraphs and words and letters in a document that they put out, and I'm looking for an inconsistency. I am using that as a sales tactic to be able to engage that customer again. And so I'm looking for something like they put a NAICS code up here, that's one NAICS code, and down here it's a different NAICS code. Or maybe they say, it's 5 pages up here and down here it's 25 pages. Whatever it is, I'm looking for something that tells me that. And I reach back and I'm saying, hey, John, quick question. I noticed there was this error in there. Don't mean to be rude, just wanted to point it out and, let you know in case you didn't see it or something. I'm very submissive when I send those kind of letters. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to, be all this or whatever. And if you're on a podcast, you can't see me doing my whole facial expression. But I try to reach back out with something. I look for something that is a legitimate reason to engage. Don't make it up. But if you can find it, do it. By the way, nowadays, I might even use ChatGPT instead. I'll just throw the whole document set into ChatGPT and say, find me an error in here or an inconsistency really quick. And in 2 minutes, it'll tell me, and now I've got it. I don't do all these on one day, by the way. Anytime I reach out to these people before I send the RFI, I'm actually kind of engaging them on different days. Okay, I need to pick up speed. I only got 8 minutes left. In the response, I like making recommendations with 2 choices. I'm trying to get them to think, especially if it's a technical kind of a consideration. I'm making a recommendation where you could go this way or this way, and here's why we're thinking. Let me know if you need to have that. And I put in the RFI, let me know if you want us to expand more on this, right? I don't put it like up in the introduction paragraph where I make the recommendation. I just add it as another sentence or something. Happy to talk to you about these 2 recommendations. The RFI is about engaging the buyer. I'm trying to give them more and more reasons to pull me in. I suggest acquisition approaches. For example, I might say this later, but set aside it aside to this. Or my favorite one is NAICS codes as an example. Hey, I think you should set it aside to this NAICS code. It's used more often throughout all federal agencies for this type of service. And generally, the reason I like it is a NAICS code I usually choose that lowers the threshold of what a small business is, so it even is pushing out other competitors. It's just a competition. And then the last one in the response is I provide this section. I say, hey, we only had a couple of pages, but we actually created a video specifically for you that if you'd like to take a look at it, here it is. And then I create a video. If I'm talking about how I'm going to use some technology or something to come in and improve the business process, et cetera, or if I'm talking about how I staff up or something, come on over here, I'll show you this video. And you can get a fairly inexpensive video made on Fiverr or something, or you could just do what I'm doing, which is use a couple of slides and talk to it. If you can get them to come out to a video and watch it, tell me that's not a competitive advantage. All right, and 2 times they will, 2 times they won't, whatever. There's a great line I use. Sometimes they will, some won't, so what, right? Some will do what I want them to do, some won't, so what? At least I got the ones who did do it. All right, the last thing is after I respond, and this is really important, right? Be persistent. Don't ever accept a contracting officer or anybody like that who goes, just watch Sam and we'll let you know. You reach out and you're like, hey, I want to check on the status of the RFI. And they're like, just watch Sam, we'll let you know what's going on. No, right? And if there's contracting officers on here, they're going to sit there and argue with me. Yes, you need to listen to them. No, you don't. This is sales. And if I have salespeople working for me and all they're going to do is watch Sam, then I can get rid of them because I can create an AI tool that just watches Sam, right? I no longer need salespeople. But a salesperson will figure out many doors to get in. If that KO or contract specialist is not going to talk to me, that's cool. That's their prerogative. I'm not judging them for it, but I'm going to figure out ways to get to that requirement. Who's the program office, right? And so I want to build a list of at least 10 points of contact. I tend to look for 15, 20 points of contact because if I want this piece of work, There's got to be all sorts of people in there. Who are the incumbents? Who are the people who have contracts that are related to it are in there? Who are all the program office people or maybe other people who are related to some of that work some way? That's capture, that's sales. And so I want you to do that. Never, ever give up. And that's what I mean by perform capture management. Don't fire and forget an RFI. Like, oh, I sent the RFI, there it goes, I'm done. That's not sales. And certainly that's not going to lead to your success. That is hope. And I literally have a sales book called Hope is Not a Strategy. Hey, I got this next slide here. Go to govconinabox.com/networking. And if you were here yesterday, I actually didn't have the link ready, but go there, register for networking. It's virtual networking. We're doing it on Monday the 3rd coming up. This past Monday, a couple of days ago, we just had over 400 people register. I want to keep providing these events for you if you come to them. By the way, if you are coming to them, invite 10 friends. If all of us invite 10 friends, we're going to have a really good network for each of you to be able to grow. Okay, so here's, and I got to go pretty fast through this, and I have a ton of videos on RFI, so you can go watch them. But what I want you to pay attention to on making the RFI yours and not the government's is this is your sales tool. I need to convince the buyer to buy from me or to come to me. So don't just be compliant. Sometimes they say you must do this, and I just send it. It's like, that's boring. If everybody does compliance, they're all the same. Be different. Responses, and I put this gently, they basically are not going to reject the response unless it's glaringly screwed up. They're not going to reject it. What you want to do is speak to your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. This is classic sales. In the RFI, in the market, in the source of sought time frame, this is a perfect time to do it. Figure out why your weaknesses are really not something that matters. And I talk about how to do this in a whole separate video. That's why I'm not talking about it right now. But the last bullet I put here was brag in your RFIs, show off. No one's going to toot your horn and all that kind of stuff to get you seen but you. So in there, don't just write, we will do this, but talk about anything you can that showcases how great you are, or your company is, or how great your recommendations are, because here's the results with a different customer, et cetera. The last thing I have here is write for the win. And what I mean by this is write the RFI as if it's a proposal. I don't know why people write a half-baked RFI and go, well, we'll write it in the RFP. I'm like, well, okay, but I just beat you because in the RFI, I put my full proposal quality mind onto the RFI response. I looked at that and said, how can I give the government everything they want 10 times better than they wanted it, right? I want them to be able to say, you know what, let's just give these guys the contract. They can't always do that. But that's the quality of the RFI when you're writing to a win, is that they pick it up and they go, man, I wish I could just give these guys the cash, right? I wish I could just award this contract. This company gets us. That's what a good RFI, a great RFI should look like. Okay, here's what I want you to remember as you're heading out of today's training. The first thing is, remember, I said there's 979 RFIs right now due in the next 30 days. Every morning, take 15 minutes and see what RFIs were added in the last 24 hours. So do that every single morning, looking for your slam dunk opportunities. You want to find opportunities that match your core competency. Don't be writing RFIs to everything, right? That's not going to get you success. Know what your core competency is, and then write to that. And then inside of those RFIs, sometimes you look in and you see an opportunity that is 7 task areas, but maybe only 1 or 2 are yours. Well, if you have no other RFI to write to that day or that week, then write to that one and respond to the government saying, this is the part we can knock out of the park. You writing that is not a waste of time, because that can be reused in the next RFI you write. But you can also reach out to a teaming partner and say, hey, I responded, but I'm not going to be able to prime. I'd love to team with you. I've already engaged the customer. And then the last thing is respond to at least 1 RFI a week. This is my minimum number, but make sure they're around your slam dunk opportunity. They have to be totally in your niche, right? But there's enough opportunities, 52 in a year, to be able to write an RFI. It might take you time to get into the rhythm to find enough to get to that stage, but that's what you should be thinking about. A perfect opportunity or an opportunity with perfect tasks, you can write at least 1 a week at some point, especially when you have reusable material. Hopefully you found this valuable. If you did, again, put RFIs rock in the chat. Let me know. And then don't forget, sign up for the networking on Monday. That's at govconinabox.com/networking. Also, as long as you're there at the govconinabox.com site, make sure you check out your visibility score. That's free. So is the networking, but go check that out and get in there. Tomorrow's training, one last thing, is how to win federal contracts in 2025. I'm excited to wrap the week up with that. Okay, remember, as you head into the rest of today and you go into tomorrow and the week, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.